welcome. My name is Kate Marand. I'm a program manager at the Department of Small and Local Business Development in our Innovation and Equitable Development Division. We are hosting a spring webinar series in May of 2024 with a lot of our really wonderful partners across the district who are part of the small business ecosystem here to support small businesses with free services. And today we are incredibly excited to bring on Charles Ma, who is with the Small Business Development Center at Howard University. I was just mentioning before we started the recording how much we love partnering with the SBDC, and really excited for all small businesses to take advantage of the free services and the really helpful services. And I hope that you check them out and hear a little bit more. So I'm going to turn things over to Charles.
Hey, thank you so much. And we feel likewise, great partnership with DSLBD. This is a general overview about what we do and how we serve the small business community in the District of Columbia. So this is a short presentation, but what I'll do is after I'm done, I'll stop sharing and then look at the chat, and we can if anybody has questions, we can go over those. So a little bit about the program itself. So the Small Business Development Center program was established in 1979, and Howard University has been part of this program since then. It's managed in the by the SBA, and it's also the largest grant-funded program the SBA has. It's what's called a matching grant fund. So Howard University puts up half of the grant value, and the SBA puts up the other half of the grant. There is an SBDC network in every state and U.S. territory. California has 5 networks just because of sheer size, and Texas has 4. But most states just have one network with a variety of centers that serve their given state or U.S. territory. Howard has one location, which is Howard University, that serves the District of Columbia. Collectively, there's about 1,000 centers nationwide. So if you live in Maryland or you live in Virginia or other states, they're there to serve you. And I'll talk a little bit about the criteria of our services in terms of what we can provide here in the district. Most of the hosts for the program are universities. So for instance, I just mentioned Maryland. The host for Maryland is the University of Maryland College Park. The host for Virginia is George Mason University. So we are also part of a membership organization called America's SBDC, and they play a vital role for all the SBDCs. There are overall marketing of our services. They're an advocate for us on the Hill in terms of us getting funding. They keep us informed of what's happening on the Hill in terms of funding for the program. They organize several conferences a year that we attend, including our national conferences, which is coming up in the fall in Atlanta. We just had a winter conference a few months ago in Virginia, where it's happens every year. And they also manage our general brand. So if you notice on the left, America's SBDC logo looks very similar to our logo. And so they address branding. They do studies also, small business studies. So sometimes when you get a survey request from us, in some cases, it's from America's SBDC. They're trying to collect data so that we can better serve the small business community, both in DC and on a national level. So a little bit about the center, center network itself. So as mentioned, we're at Howard University. We've been there since '79. We're an accredited program. So we're accredited by our peers every 5 years, where they come and look at our program and see if we're meeting certain standards. In fact, this past year was our accreditation year. Overall, we provide four basic services: no-cost counseling, training, webinars, and workshops, access to capital, and business research. And I'll go into a little bit deeper depth about each of those areas. Last year, this shows our impact. We counseled, one-on-one counseled with 770 small businesses. That included 3,285 sessions, and that spanned among about at that time, about 15 or 16 counselors. We have a smaller team right now. We conducted 109 webinars last year, webinars and workshops, and we helped clients get about $6.5 million in funding. So the criteria for getting services from us, we serve for-profit small businesses. We often get requests for nonprofits, but unfortunately, based upon our charter, we only serve for-profit small businesses. If you're a DC resident, you qualify for getting services from us, even if your business is maybe in an adjoining state, but you live here in DC. We can assist businesses from other states, but as long as they're trying to establish a physical location in DC, and that could be a satellite office, a headquarters even, or maybe a retail store space. We don't provide services to certain businesses, and that includes gentlemen clubs, liquor stores, or cannabis-related businesses. We can assist CBD related businesses as long as it's below the certain threshold in terms of its makeup. So a little bit about the different services we provide. Counseling is our biggest service that we provide, and it's at no cost, and it's confidential one-on-one small business counseling. We work with all types of businesses across all industries, whether they're in startup, growth, or mature phase. Some of the business services we provide include business and management assistance with your operations, strategy, helping you put a business plan together, risk management, strategic planning. And because of our physical location, we have a lot of clients that are government contracting or in that sector. So we can assist free of charge with helping clients get the certifications you see listed here. CBE, DBE, MBE, WASB, 8A, HubZone, and also certifications with local agencies, including MWA and Metro. MWA stands for Metropolitan Washington Airports Authority. And we have a variety of industry and subject matter experts. So for instance, if you have a food-based business, we have a food and hospitality expert that can assist you in that area. If you need marketing support, we have an expert in that area. And as mentioned, we can help with government contracting. We have several experts that can help in that area. One of the certifications not mentioned was GSA Schedule. We can also help with that, and that's free of charge too. We also help with capital assistance. We don't loan money, but we can help you identify a source for funding that aligns with what you're looking for. So it might be a micro loan, a small loan, it might be a larger loan. So we might look at other sources for that, which includes CDFIs, or it could be with banks and so on. So, you know, typically after initial consultation or down the line, we've consulted with you for a bit and you want to talk about access to capital, we can help you with that. And not only help you identify the source, but also walk through the paperwork with you and help you make sure all of it is in order before you submit. We also help with business plans, helping you put a business plan together that you submit with that funding request. We also help with grants, and we help identify grants for specific clients where where they meet certain qualifications. DSLBD also works in that space, and we often direct clients to the page for grants that DSLBD hosts. As mentioned, we do a variety of trainings, and this is just a sample of topics here: cybersecurity, government contracting, business planning. We have one coming up on investing. So if you're a business owner and you're looking at getting a retirement plan or something like that, we have one coming up soon in the mid-June on that, including some government contracting webinars and others. Most of our offerings in the educational space are virtual, so you can be at home and not have to travel. There's a few that we have that do require travel, and specifically it's our food manager certification, where you do have to be in person for that. And that's the only one we have where there is a charge. We also conduct market research free of charge for our clients. On the right, you'll see several sources that we use. SBDC Net is a grant-funded program that provides industry data to all the SBDCs from around the country. We work with them to provide client information. What you see here in terms of bullet points is just a few of the areas or focus where we can get information on, whether it be competition, customer profiles, demographics, and so on. We also use Vertical IQ. This is a platform that we pay for. It's no cost to our clients, and we can generate industry reports both on a national level and also on a local level that's specific to DC. And we also encourage our clients to utilize the DC Public Library. There's a variety of resources there. What some people don't know is that if you have a DC library card, you have access to getting LinkedIn Learning free of charge. You have to access it through your library account, but it is available as a benefit of having a library card. To get counseling from us is very simple. You go to our website. It's a very simple URL, www.dcsbdc.org. You select the new client link on the home page. It'll be slightly to the left and down. It'll ask for your email address, creation of a password, and then once you complete the registration, which includes a variety of questions, you'll get a confirmation. Might I also add too that you can also request specific counselor in a specific area that you're interested in too. We have a counseling coordinator that once your request goes in, they direct it to a counselor that can best fit your need or area of business. And that's pretty much it. That's our contact information. You can reach us at info@dcsbdc.org. Again, that's our website and that's our general line. So with that, I'll stop here and see if there's any questions.
And then there is one question in the chat, Charles, and thank you so much. And let me encourage everyone else who is on the line. Please feel free to be dropping in some questions, raising your hands. In a couple minutes, we'll come to our call-in user. And that question came in two parts. I'm happy to read it out. So the question is, there are financial calculators there, meaning break-even analysis and all of the other various benefit ratios to create the financial plan and the business plan. Is that correct?
Yeah, so that's a very good question. In fact, we have several. One of the things I didn't mention was that ASBDC has worked to establish some relationships with some large organizations that provide tools for small business. One of them is Intuit, which makes QuickBooks. So we have a discount link for that. And if we have time today, I'll look that up and put it in the chat. We also use or encourage our clients to use a platform called LivePlan, which is a business planning and forecasting software as a service tool. It's a great tool to use if you're trying to create a business plan from scratch. It has a variety of templates there that you can utilize, copy and paste, and so on. And the financials is a very strong part of the LivePlan platform, where you can put in forecasts, whether you're a service company or a product company. There's other tools that we can recommend too that can be helpful in terms of any calculations you may need to do. Hopefully that answered your question.
Thank you for that. Another question was just asking about the dates of the trainings that are coming up. Is there a website where those are listed?
There is, and if you give me 1 second, I will pull up that link and add it to the chat.
And I'll start a little bit on the answer to the next question, Ernest, while he does that, but
Please
Charles
do.
can also answer a lot about this. The question is, what are the benefits of a DC library card? And as folks may know, both the SBDC and DSLBD partner with the DC Public Library System very extensively because of the many free resources that are available. So I think specifically Charles was referencing LinkedIn Learning. That is a learning platform that used to be separate. It was called Lynda Learning. LinkedIn bought them, but you can get all of those training and classes. There are thousands of them for free with your library card. That's just one of the many digital resources that you can get. They also have business plan builders. There's a lot of different benefits, but Charles, I'll go ahead and pass that back over to you for any additional pieces.
Yeah, they, as mentioned, they have some great tools. We work with them with the DC Public Libraries for events that we co-sponsor and so on. Sometimes we host them at the library, but they're a great resource. And the value really of LinkedIn Learning is that if you went through LinkedIn without going into your library account, you would pay $60 for LinkedIn Learning a month. So definitely take advantage of that. Go through your library account or get a library account, and once you get in there, you can get access to LinkedIn Learning.
The next question is about counselors and some of their specialties. Do you have specific counselors to help with maker or craft or small manufacturing businesses?
Yes, we have a couple of counselors with experts that are experts in product marketing. Also, I should mention too, and I'm glad we brought this up, is that we actually have a free platform. The SBDC pays for this, and it's a free platform, e-commerce platform, where our clients can market their wares. And I'll put that in the chat. And it's called Shop SBDC. And I'll grab that link.
And as Charles is grabbing that link, the next question is, how do the SBDC services differ from or complement the services provided by DSLBD? And I'll say something super broad while he's dropping that in, but I think there's a lot of very specific things. There are a number of free service providers in the district, and one of the things that we would encourage you to do from DSLBD is to work with all of them. Not only does everyone have some different specialties, but as you are making decisions in your business, it is good to get different frames of reference, different points of view, so that you can be filtering a lot of different information as you are making final decisions. So it's like getting a second and a third opinion, but also the services are different. And so I'll turn some more of that back over to Charles.
Yeah, also too, I know somebody just asked about app developers. We actually have a few third parties that we are strategic partners with that we refer to clients, but it's up to the client to validate them to make sure it's in alignment with what their need is. So when I talk about third party strategic partners, that could be either accountants, it could be an app developer, or in other areas of need, tax specialists, and so on. So we do have a few, and again, banking I should add to that list too. But I should say again too that it's not necessarily a direct referral, but we encourage our clients to evaluate that third party to see if it meets their needs.
Thank you for that. And Charles, I'm going to tee up the question that comes next with actually, again, a broader question for you. I know a lot of times when we meet businesses, and it's potentially the same for you, they have a very particular issue that they'd like to work on right then and there. I know sometimes what we'll do is we'll step back a couple of steps with them and say, that is a great issue. That is a great topic. There's a broader framework that might fit into and want to chat with you about. So, if folks are looking for a very particular answer to something that they're doing right now, how would you suggest they think about working with the SBDC, not just on that question, but in a broader way?
Well, typically, and this really is, that's a good question in terms of how we engage initially. So typically a first appointment, the one-on-one counseling involves an assessment of where you are with your business. And we'll take you through a series of questions. If you're in concept phase, we'll ask you what you've done to date. Have you done any research? and we'll ask questions related to the feasibility of the concept. And we'll provide feedback. For a startup or an existing business, what we might do is look at where you are and where you're trying to get to and work on a series of what we call homework to help you get to where want to get to. It might involve a business plan. It might involve doing some research. It could be a variety of things, but we try and lay out a series of activities that help you get to your goals. And, we typically, you're not limited in the number of sessions you can have with us. And typically a counselor might meet with a client either once a week or once every 2 weeks, and then they'll review what progress they've made to date on that quote unquote homework that we've given.
Thank you for that. And that kind of tees up to the specific question that someone had asked. And they're asking if in counseling, in a one-on-one session, can that help towards very specific needs, such as assisting with registering an apprenticeship and or other educational aspects on the Fed and state level?
Possibly, yeah. So as mentioned before, we can help with certification and registration. And what we usually do, if we can't answer a question, we'll try and research it for you or direct you in the location where you can get that information. But we definitely can help, whether it be in the federal space or the local space in terms of federal or local government areas.
And
I
I'm
hope that
gonna
answers the question.
and if folks have asked a question and they feel like they want to add more clarity to it, I'm moving through the chat and bringing these pieces up, so you can always look for a clarification there, and we'll come back to it. And I'm going to step us back to a broader question as we feed into the next question, Charles. And I think this sometimes comes up with technical assistance and counseling for small businesses. Could you help find the line between providing advice and doing something for the business? So the difference between a paid professional service provider and a free technical assistance provider, and what is sort of the difference in that space?
That's a very good question too. We provide guidance. We don't do things for you. In other words, we won't do your taxes. We don't write your business plan. We don't write your proposal if you're submitting a proposal to the government. But we provide guidance and best practice in how to produce a good product. So we may provide a template to you for a business plan, and we'll give you guidance in terms of the content, and then we'll go through a series of reviews to make sure that business plan meets the intended goal, whether it be looking for capital or just as a roadmap for the business. And a lot of people don't realize when you create a business plan, it's not necessarily just for getting funding, but it also can be used to be a roadmap from getting from point A to point B and outlining all the components that you may need to make the business successful.
I think there's a phrase. I don't know if you agree with this one, but I think it's because I know sometimes people want to skip the business plan, and
Yeah.
we're trying to encourage them not to. But I think the phrase is that plans are useful, but planning is essential. And so the act of
Yeah.
planning is the act of writing the plan. So things will change once you've done it. But if you didn't do all that planning, you are that much less prepared for how things are going to change.
Exactly. And I think also too that the old today's approach to business plan, as they say, it's not my father's business plan. We've moved a lot of steps since then. So it's not a big thick document like used to be produced. And reviewers of those business plans like a briefer document. So there's a move toward what's called a lean business plan, and or the business model canvas. And by the way, for that link I put in the chat for workshops, we have some coming up in June on both those topics, the business model canvas, which I would call business plan light, so to speak. And then we also have one on the lean business plan. And depending upon the type of business you have and the complexity, either one may be appropriate for your business, but it's appropriate to plan. Take what you have up here and get it onto paper.
Thank you for that. And I think the next question that comes up is sort of what kind of support can the SBDC provide for someone who is looking to build their website? Is there, starting from scratch and trying to think about that?
I mean, we can give some suggestions in terms of third-party host platforms, but moreover, what we can do is to provide some inputs on the design and what you think, what and talk about the market that you're targeting for your website. So, for example, when I work with a client that is in government contracting, I always talk about, well, you should have a page on there related to that sector. If you provide services or products to the commercial sector, that should also be on there because each market uh, wants different information, and so that should be included on the site. So, like with our other services, we provide guidance in that area, and we have some specific marketing uh, specialists who can help in terms of the look and feel and content. But we don't actually, build out the site for you. Um, Also, too, I should mention too, a big topic right now is AI. So we have moved in terms of having workshop offerings in that area, and also in terms of incorporating AI as part of your marketing tools. So we're trying to be cutting edge, so to speak.
Thank you for that. And I think and I one space that may be helpful, you mentioned a lot about referrals in different directions before. And I think to the space of websites and other things like that, I know one of the spaces that we would not refer everyone, but if someone was like, I'm in a very beginner space and I don't know anything about how to do a website, we would probably point them again to the Library for LinkedIn Learning, maybe to their Digital Navigator program. And so to that space too, Charles, like if someone is in counseling and they're at different spaces and trying to understand different parts of tech, like what are some of those other types of referrals? And I'm not asking for specific ones, but just how would you suggest that people think about the referrals that they might be getting? Because sometimes people are like, well, I'm just getting bounced around,
Mhm.
but there's a sort of a different perspective, I think, to take to the referrals of like getting pointed in directions.
Well, well, the good thing, Kate, and you know this, that we are very collaborative among within our organization, but among all of our uh, organizations that support the local small business community. So if we feel that you're better served, say through DSLBD, we will refer you to that, to you guys, or to other organizations that can best serve you. I'll give you an example. I had a client that is in the fintech area, and we're not experts in that area necessarily. But Disby has a program that supports fintechs. So we sent them to Disby. So, two things that we do. We recognize what we can do, and then where we can't do it, we try and, provide a good reference and also one where you're not going to get bounced around.
I appreciate that. Next question. It's a little bit about the template and getting connected. So about the business plan template, is that accessible and online? And how can someone schedule an appointment to go over it?
Well, the first thing we'd like to do is sit down with you as a business and find out kind of where you are. And then we can go into our toolbox to pull out the right tools, whether they be a soft copy template of a business plan or a platform that might serve you better. So, like I said before, the first meeting is where we assess where your business is and everything that you need to do. I like to, when I'm working with a client, um, you know, use the listening piece more than the talking piece. Find out where you are, and I take copious notes with the client, and then as we go through, I will put together a framework of tools that may be helpful, tools slash homework for the client. And then what I do is the first thing I do in our next session is go over any progress that they have that they've made, and also I encourage clients in between sessions. We may not meet for 2 weeks, but in between there, if you have any questions about what I've provided, definitely reach out. We want to make sure that you stay on a reasonable path to get to where you're going to in terms of your goals and aspirations for your business without overloading you at any given time with too much homework or too much information.
And Charles, as we get to the next question, I also want to just reflect back. What a gift to have someone who is going to spend 30 minutes or an hour listening. And somebody reinforced that to us recently at DSLBD too, that business owners are running around, they're doing so many different things. You've got a lot of ideas in your head, and sometimes just having that sounding board in that time to just say it out loud all in at one time can be very helpful and therapeutic and necessary as well. And so I want to just pause on that and see if you have any reflections on that space too, Charles, because I know you have worked with a lot of businesses for a lot of years. And I think as folks are, whether they're new to business or if they've just been in it so much, you've got a lot of pearls and gems to share of wisdom. And I don't know if that space of that gift brings any thoughts of mine to you.
Well, two phrases come to mind. The first one being, you're not in business by yourself, but for yourself. So with that being said, there's a lot of free resources in the District of Columbia, including the two organizations that are on this webinar. The second part of it is that I say, and Kate may have heard me say this before, is the good news and bad news about DC is there's a lot of resources. The bad news is there's a lot of resources, and where do I start? So I think starting with one organization, whether it be DSLBD or SBDC, and starting there to tell your story. And you may want to bring a business plan that you've already started during the meeting. You may just say, I have a concept I want to run by you, but at least have a starting point there where we can at least understand where you are, and again, chart a path to help you get to where you're going to. And our counselors cover a variety of areas. We may not know everything, but we'll try and direct you in the best way, whether it is with third-party resources, or sometimes what we do is what we call tag teaming. If I don't know something, but I know another counselor may know something, I connect them with that counselor. We both work together to help that client meet their goals and aspirations. So you should never feel that you're in business by yourself, but at least do that reach out as a starting point to see how we can help you.
Appreciate that so much. Looking at the next question, we're going to go in on some business plan theory and practice. So of business plans, should a quote unquote proposal plan that is advised be almost like a PowerPoint, like sales deck? Is that what a business plan should look like today?
Well, it's typically a document. A slide deck can be used for a pitch, but typically it doesn't contain all the information that's necessary. So a slide deck might be 10 to 15 slides, possibly more, depending upon the complexity of the business. But it basically outlines, a problem statement. Here's how we solve that problem. The qualifications of the folks who are part of the team. Your solution. Some of the numbers related to, the pitch, your return on investment, your profitability, and so on. Of course, if you're starting out, these are all estimates. But the business plan is a more detailed backup to that. And especially if you're looking for investors, you're going to probably need both. The pitch deck provides a nice overview for the viewer to understand what your business or proposed business is about, but that business plan is the backup with the more detailed information, which would include your income statement, your cash flow statement, your balance sheet. In terms of the financials, there may be more details about your management team. There might be resumes in the appendices and so on. But as mentioned earlier, we tend to lean toward a lean business plan these days, and not to the big 60, 70, 80 page plans of yesteryear, but more plans that are direct and to the point. I think one of the most important things in a business plan is a strong executive summary, which is typically 1 page. And that's where you're giving the viewer or the reader reasons why they want to invest or loan you money for your business. So I think both work hand in hand. Um, but a pitch deck can be a good start in terms of enticing someone in terms of interest for the business.
As you just made me want to ask another question because you talked about one of the strongest, most important parts of a business plan, and there may not be a singular answer to what I'm about to ask you, but what would you say, just having worked with a lot of entrepreneurs, is the hardest part?
I think the hardest part is financials because I think, especially if you're just starting out and you haven't been immersed in business, understanding what the financials mean and the differentiation of them. So, some of you who are on the call may have heard of a cash flow statement, an income statement, or a profit and loss statement. Income statement and profit and loss statement are synonymous terms. The cash flow statement is a separate financial, and your balance sheet. So understanding what those mean, both in terms of realistic projections, but also understanding once you engage in the business, what information can be gleaned from those documents, from those financials to help make business decisions. And we can help you with that, whether you're just starting out or further down the line in the business. We can help you, discern what you may need from that and put together the best business plan possible.
Thank you for that. Someone mentioned that they'd like to come to counseling fully prepared. And I think that could mean a lot of different things, but what would be your advice to someone who wants to come to counseling fully prepared?
Well, fully prepared, that's a relative term, I guess, but I think the most important thing is if you've done any research in the area that you're in, let's say you're just starting out with a concept, any research that you've already done would be good. If you've started a business plan, we'd love to take a look at that. Anything that you feel is helpful in terms of understanding you as a business. If you have a mission statement, vision statement, all those are helpful pieces of information that help us better understand what your business is about. I think that's really probably the if you have those available, that's the most important thing. I think the other thing is if you don't have those things, that's all right too, because we can start with a conversation of where you are, what you're trying to do, and then build upon that to get you those pieces that you don't have.
Thank you for that. We have a question, and the person who apologized slightly after for making it a very specific TA question. And I actually wonder if in answering it, we might actually be able to show that there can be multiple points of view. I don't know if you and I would agree on the same exact course of action.
Okay.
So the question is, if I'm existing and I'm expanding into a new area, specifically they're going to move into brick and mortar, should they use the figures from their existing business or new info for the specifics of the expansion?
I think it's a combination of both. I think if, let's say that you were virtual and now you're going into a physical space, part of the calculation that you add to your financials is what do my revenues need to be to cover that existing cost of the physical space and everything associated with it, utilities, lease. And then when you look at the physical space, part of that is what are the terms of the lease? What will the landlord allow me to do if I want to make tenant improvements? How does that affect my lease amount? So, for instance, let's say you're leasing a space for $2,000 a month, and you make tenant improvements to the inside of the building, painting and other things. Will that landlord reduce my lease, related to those tenant improvements? But I think the overarching thing is you really want to look at any changes you make to the business, whether it be leasing a new space, getting a loan. You have to factor all that into your projections to see what do I need to do, or can the business afford it as it is, or how much do I need to increase revenues to afford those new operational costs?
And I think
I hope that answered the question.
And I think what Charles just demonstrated is how much the SBDC can go deep on those questions. And I think the other piece, and Charles, correct me if I'm wrong, it's, I think if someone had come and met with me with the library, I would have given you some of that, but then I may or may not see you again. But if you have a counselor at the SBDC, they saw you, they have those notes, and the next time they see you, they're gonna be like, hey, how are those numbers working out? Like they're gonna want to see that homework and that feedback. And so it's a longer term conversation and a very specific thread. So different people could give you advice. But Charles,
Mhm.
I'll let you sort of like elucidate that a little bit better since it is the SBDC. What does it mean to be able to bring that question back again as they've been working on that homework? As are they getting it right?
For instance, if I was meeting with the person who asked the question about rental space, I would first want to have some hard numbers related to it in terms of what the cost might be. So for example, I would refer them to the Washington DC Economic Partners, who has a real estate, um, commercial real estate link there where you can look up what your requirements are, and it will give you um, spaces that may be available across the city. And for instance, that's part of the research piece. And then that information can be plugged into your financial calculations. So, as mentioned before, if we can't answer a question, we look at other resources that are available out there that may be able to assist in terms of helping the client completely put together a complete hypothesis for the business.
I say thank you for that. And then I'm going to go to our call-in user. We only have one call-in user. I'm going to send you a request to unmute in case you have any questions for Charles. And then we'll come back to the chat if there are more questions there. But for our call-in user, I've sent you a request to unmute. And it may be that you don't have any questions. If you come off of mute in a second, we'll get there. Oh, you are off mute. Go ahead. If you are speaking, we cannot hear you. So you might need to check that piece.
Yeah, I didn't hear anything.
Okay, so one thing that you all spoke of was loans. Now, is there any, because I know being a DC resident, that each ward goes through grants. Is there any grants available for small business?
I'm going to defer to Kate on that one because they have a great link on their site which covers grants.
Mm-hmm. And I say in the past, and some of these are on our YouTube, we've had a number of different training series about grants. Grants do exist in a number of different ways across district government. They are also often very competitive. That does not mean we do not want you to apply. What that means is that we're going to suggest that you think of grants as supplemental rather than as sort of like the direct funding that can start your business. Because grants are also more common in this space of existing businesses. But what we would highly recommend that you do, in addition to becoming a client with the SBDC and just thinking about what is the structure behind your business, we've also launched something called the Equitable Access to Capital Survey and Passport to Funding Readiness. So part of what we've done from DSLBD is talk to a lot of partners like Charles, like lenders, like everyone else who's giving grants, and said, what are the baseline things that everyone is requesting and needing so that someone can be successful in a funding application? So a lot of what we're doing, and it's a lot of the foundations that you would get at the SBDC, is saying before you can definitely be looking at grant applications, but we want to be working with you on everything that you would need to be competitive and successful in those endeavors. But if you want to reach out to inno.ed, which you probably saw that from all the outreach on this, we can get you signed up with the Equitable Access to Capital Survey.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I also dropped a resource in the chat, venturize.org. If you get on their mailing list, they periodically have a variety of grants that may be available. And I definitely agree with Kate that I would not depend primarily on grants, but I would look at them as a supplement to your business. What you should be focus on are the revenues that your sales will create to sustain the business, but the grants are, an um, additional resource to help your business continue. Notable also too with grants, definitely pay attention to the requirements, reporting requirements with a given grant. So you're not just necessarily getting the money in some cases, but there may be some reporting required where you have to provide information, ongoing information about the progress of your company for a period of time. So that's important too.
No, thank you for that. We've got about 10 minutes left in the hour. I'm not seeing a lot more questions in the chat. I want to give space in case people want to ask those questions, and I have some questions for Charles, some discussion points of some of the great stuff that I think they do, but also I think really perspective. I think sometimes we've met folks who have expressed that the business planning process is challenging, that they'd rather just get started on the business, or that sort of the homework that they might get from counseling, they're not feeling it for whatever reason, and so they may turn away from counseling. And one of the things that we encourage people to do is to go back, and go back to that space. But I'm just curious, for if folks are finding things challenging, what would just be your advice, both working with the SBDC, but also just generally?
Well, I think sometimes there is a hurriedness to want to get the business going. And what I suggest to clients is to pace yourself. Don't feel you need to accomplish 50,000 things in a week, but prioritize what are the important things needed to advance my business, but in a reasonable amount of time. And I usually like to use the rule of three. What are the biggest three things that you want to accomplish in a given week toward moving the business along? Focus on those three, and everything else falls below that. And I think, just being realistic about the startup of the business. It does take some effort. I put business activities in one of two categories. I call one of them the one and dones. That, getting the business registered, that's a one and done. But other things are ongoing things, your marketing activities, your operational activities. Put those into your calendar so that you pace and organize the business accordingly and develop a rhythm about the business. And I think that's the key, is not to try and, stress yourself out trying to do all these different things, but just lay it out in a good manner. One of the books I suggest to my clients is a book by Corey Kogan. And the title of the book is The 5 Choices. It can be found on Amazon. But it talks about, of the 5 choices, 2 are related to decision management, 2 are related to attention management, and the third being energy management. And it's really about giving some great tips and tricks on just managing productivity. And I think, the path to success is not, it's not a mystery or hidden. It's just about doing the right things in a reasonable amount of time and being coachable to help move the business forward.
Thank you for that. I'll put up clarification, and this one was pretty quick, but somebody asked about California versus DC. Just to clarify, this is the Washington, DC Small Business Development Center. This is the DC Department of Small and Local Business Development. All of the resources that we're talking about today are specific to Washington, DC, the District of Columbia, and small businesses and residents that are located here.
But I'm going to help you out. If you are not in DC, I'm going to give you a link, and I'm dropping that in the chat now. If you're in another state, definitely use that link. That's tied to America's SBDC. I mentioned the organization earlier, a membership organization. They have a page where you can find your SBDC, your local SBDC. Put in the zip code or city, and it will generate the results from there.
I've got 2 more questions for you, Charles, in the little bit of time that we have. And unless someone has a question, please put those in on the chat. But this one is about tough decisions that business owners have to make. One of those toughest decisions is sometimes it is time for the business to be done for whatever reason. And sometimes it's really hard for people to face those decisions, and there's a lot of reasons for that. If someone was looking at a decision point, whether it's that or another difficult one, what are some of the things that they might be able to expect out of having a conversation with their counselor about that?
Well, I think the counselor can provide options. If it's a healthy business that's in, good financial shape, um, there are a variety of options to look at. There's what's called ESOPs, where you can the employees can buy the business from you. That's another option. Um, and there are other options in terms of the business. One of the first questions we ask clients is, um, what is the exit strategy for the business? Are you looking to keep it for a lifetime? Is it a legacy business you want to pass on in your family? Is it a business that you want to build for 10 years and essentially it acts like a 401k? After 10 years, you built the business, you want to sell it and move on, possibly to another business or just retire. So I think one of the first things someone should think about, even before they get to the point of facing those difficult questions, is, what is the exit strategy? What do I want to do with this business? And I think the counselor can be a good tool to bounce those options off, to figure out what you want to do.
Thank you for that. And I think my last question, we'll close out with this if I don't see any additional questions. Someone did ask about how to contact the SBDC. I have dropped the direct link in order to become a new client. And I think, one of the things I just want to encourage here, anytime you are working with someone on small business, you could get in touch with them directly. But if they have a client structure, if they have services, it's always really good to come in that front door and to get all of the things that are built up in that structure. And I think that's what I want to kind of end on. It's the same kind of question. I often say, I hope people become clients of the Small Business Development Center for the life cycle, for the full lifetime of their business. And I think it's not just there, but also being able to soak up all of these other resources, and just any thoughts and reflections you have, from the businesses that you have seen, not only be sort of life cycle clients of the SBDC, but also soaking up all those other resources. Just any reflections from that space, and then we'll close out.
Well, I just saw another question. I'm going to deviate slightly, but it says, what are typically the lighter days to attempt to schedule with the SBDC? We don't really have lighter days. People say, well, you're at Howard University. Do you guys shut down for the summer? We're a year-round program, and we typically do not have times where things get slower. It's usually busy year-round. As mentioned earlier, last year we counseled 770 clients, and we're probably on pace to get close to that number this year. So we're fairly busy. But keep in mind too that you're working with your counselor, and when you work with your counselor, you both work together to come up with a schedule of meetings, a meeting or meetings that both can accommodate. And I hope that answered your question there. And Kate, could you repeat that last question you had?
Yeah, just
one more time?
Any reflections, as we've talked about there being a lot of resources, one of the things that I tell small businesses a lot is that, I encourage them to become clients of the SBDC for the life cycle of their business.
Yeah.
And to really see that. And any reflections that you have, for folks who do take advantages of resources in a deep way, just sort of what does that mean?
Yeah, I think the key with utilizing the SBDC is realizing that we are in the business of helping guide our clients. Again, we don't do your taxes, we don't write your business plan or write your proposals. We help guide you. And really our end goal is to help you get to a position where you can utilize third-party resources um, that can enhance and get you to that next level. So we're really a stepping stone. Although I will say that we do have clients that are very successful that periodically come back to us, and they typically move from us helping them get the business going and helping getting it started to, hey, I just have a question or two, and we just wanted to run it by you, see what you thought. And you know, I have clients I've worked with probably this year will be 10 years with the SBDC. I have clients that I've worked with for 8 years. And, you know, the initial part of our relationship was we meet every 2 weeks. And now I might get a call from them, you know, 3 times a year to set up a time to just, you know, run something by me. One of our most recent success stories, in fact, I just met with her a couple days ago. Last year, she's in the government contracting space, and when we started the engagement, she had 0 contracts, and by the time we got to the end of the year, she had 5 contracts, and now is at a point where she's adding staff to cover all the new stuff she has. So, you know, that's an example of what we hope we can achieve with every client. Not every client will achieve that, but we hope that is something that we can help clients move to. And we have a great staff. One thing I may not have mentioned too is that all of our counselors have either owned or currently own their own business. So they're very empathetic and understanding about what a small business goes through because they've dealt with those lessons learned. And that's present company included. I've been either a co-owner or owner of a business, or worked as a manager in a business, small business, spanning the last 30 years. I know I only look like I'm under 30, but I'm really actually a little bit older than that. But I've learned so many lessons learned, and I help to pass those on to clients to help them, you know, get to where they're going to.
Charles, thank you so much for spending the hour with us today. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you, everyone who is on the line. I am going to wrap us just to be respectful of time. I know we're just a little bit over 5, but I'll go ahead and end the recording. But really hope the folks connect with the SBDC. And thank you for all that you and all of your colleagues do, Charles.
And likewise, Kate, we, again, as mentioned, we think we have a great strategic relationship with the DSLBD, and, you know, hopefully every year we can make that relationship even better.
Agreed.